everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Joy of Being for busy working mums and women in business and beyond who are seeking to unplug from their worries and overwhelm to light up with insight and joy. I, your host, mum, and effortless lifestyle coach Marina Pearson, talk to transformational professionals, business owners, and creatives about what it really takes to have a business and life you can truly enjoy. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. And if you'd like a more personalized touch to live a stress-free life, then why not find out more about the Joy of Being retreat, an intimate 4-day profound experience at a luxury venue in Javier, Spain, where you get to experience your inner calm and peace of mind by slowing down and making space. To find out more, email me at marina@marinapearson.com with Joy of Being retreat in the title. And on today's show, I have the infamous Rebecca Perkins. Rebecca is an experienced wellbeing and resilience coach and now works specifically with families, daughters, children, mothers, fathers who are dealing with anorexia and eating disorders. And this really came about because of her experience with her own daughter. And as a result, she co-authored and published a book called Recovery from Within, a mother and daughter's journey through anorexia. But way before this, she's already known on the radio. She was interviewed BBC Radio's 4's Woman Hour for her first book called Best Knickers Always, 50 Lessons for Midlife. And she's also been known to appear on Robert Elms and Joe Good's BBC Radio London shows too. And this shift into working with eating disorders came about because of her own journey with her daughter. And on this episode, we talked about that, what was going on for her, what was going on for her daughter, how her daughter has now fully recovered, and the implications of all of that. It was such an honest and deep and humbling conversation that we could have carried on for hours and hours after. There was something really personal and deep to it, something we both got really emotional actually in a moment because it was deeply moving and touching. So if you're experiencing an eating disorder or you have a family relative or you have a daughter or a son that's going through it, then this is going to be an amazing episode for you. Enjoy. So Rebecca, what a wonderful, wonderful honor to have you on the episode today talking about eating disorders. Now, I know for most of the listeners who are mums, maybe you've experienced this with a child or you're experiencing it now, or maybe you've even gone through it, or maybe you are going through it yourself. So I wanted to open up this conversation because I know somebody that suffered for, I guess, when I went through it. It started when I was about 13, 14, but didn't really stop until I was about 35.
Yeah.
So an honor to have you on here today. So Rebecca, I'd love to start with, how did this journey begin for you?
Well, I am so happy to be on the show today. So I guess the journey begins in 2008 when my darling daughter, Beatrice B, was 14 years old. And I had suspected that things were not good on the eating front with her, but it was one of those issues that I didn't want to face. I didn't want to go anywhere near it. I was doing some research myself, but just didn't. I buried it, head in the sand. And then it was New Year's Eve 2008-9 that all the family were together. I'm very close with my sister, and the cousins all get on, so it was a wonderful evening. And my nephew, who was 13 at the time, said to my sister, "Does B have an eating disorder?" Boom, straight out like that. And she then said to me the next morning, "This is what Henry said." And Marina, my legs gave way, and I can feel it now, because she had voiced what I had feared so deeply. And there was that, no, not B, not us, no, this happens to other people.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen to us. But there it was. So we went to the doctor, and back then we were fortunate enough where we were living. It's a bit of a postcode lottery, but we were able to get straight to see the people that we needed to see. But it was from there that everything unraveled, because it was like for B, and she talks about this, that she had the label anorexia. So for her, it was, I'm going to be the best anorexic I can be with that label. And we can go into more detail about all of that. But if I fast forward to now, she is 26 and, in her words, recovered, not in recovery, but recovered. And we've gone through from 2008 to the present a number of years of in and out of appointments with hospitals, dietitians, nutritionists, psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, you name it. Her and me, we had one family group, which was so painful that B said, and I was thinking, never again, because there was so much to deal with in that situation, with egos and guilt and resentments, and I mean, it was just too painful to do. So it's been an incredible journey of pain and delight and everything in between. From the feeling that this was always going to be part of her life and our life, to now seeing that it's in the past. And I think, at the time, a bit of background was that at the time that B was diagnosed, I was going through NLP and coaching training. At the time, I was able to separate the behavior from the identity back then in NLP terms. So I knew, and in fact, it's interesting because the understanding that you and I both come from now, I was able to see that she was caught up in her thinking. It wasn't who she was. And that, to me, I was so grateful for the training I was going through at the time that I was able to see that. And I remember having a conversation with my mum when B was just being vile to me, shouting, screaming, slamming doors and everything. And my dear mum was saying to me, I don't know how you let her speak to you the way you do. And I just remember saying to her, because it's not her. That's not her. Because then half an hour later, B comes back downstairs and breaks down into my arms crying. Now that's her, or that's another part of her. So it's the most challenging thing I've ever gone through in my life. Divorce, piece of cake compared to that. Mother with dementia, piece of cake. Yeah. But the joy now of having come out of it, and one of my, my work, which has revolved around women in midlife, has moved towards, includes those, but also towards those that are struggling with eating disorders, whether that's the parents that are struggling with a loved one or the person who's going through it.
Beautiful work, Rebecca, and very much needed in the world. I did not expect this conversation to be so emotionally charged.
I didn't either.
I really resonate and relate to what B went through. God, I remember being so vile to my mother. I think I threw oranges at her once.
It's random.
Yeah, well, whatever was nearest. I love the fact that you saw that she wasn't her behavior. And I also love the fact that you see the beauty in how it all kind of worked out in the end. I think something came to mind when you were talking, which was, I mentioned it to you around my son. He's only 4. He has some big feelings, and he doesn't know any other way to express them other than through hitting at the moment, hitting other children and hurting them. And he's been reprimanded for it quite a few times already in the last couple of weeks. And what I've got to see is that doesn't necessarily go away. We're always in some way, shape or form doing that, even as adults. So big feelings show up. we have a way of dealing with them. And sometimes it's not generative, right? So it could be I stop eating, or it could be I decide that it's a great idea to overeat and then bin and then
purge.
Purge. Or it could be alcohol or shopping or self-harming, but it points pretty much to the same thing, which is I don't want to feel what I'm feeling right now.
And we are doing it all the time.
Yeah, those copious amounts of coffee sometimes where I'm like, I don't want to feel it, I'm just going to have some more coffee.
And so something comes to mind as well. So I've got 2 sons as well.
Oh, you do?
Yes, yeah. So my eldest is 29, almost 29, and he lives in Singapore. My youngest is 20, coming up for 21, and he's a student. And it's really interesting because he came out when he was 14, and has suffered anxiety a lot. And used to get panic attacks. And he would talk about that he was an introvert and didn't want to be out and didn't want to be outside or, with lots of people. But he got himself a job before he went off to university working in a cafe. So he was front of house, very busy. And he would sometimes just literally have to leave and go and find somewhere to hide whilst he had the panic attack, and then to be able to come back in to the cafe. And I'd spoken to him about the inside out understanding of where our experiences are really coming from. And he really got it. He's a physicist, that's what his passion is science. But he got it in a completely different way to how maybe I understood things. And he said to me one day, he said, Mum, I've just had the most extraordinary experience, is that I could feel the rising panic of a panic attack coming. But I thought, it's just a feeling. And I just allowed it, almost like a scientific experiment. I allowed it to come and do its thing. And he said it was like a wave that came through me and went out the other side. And it was like, oh, was that it? He said, and I'm no longer frightened of them. And I know it's my thinking that was creating that in me. And I didn't need to pursue it. And that was just like, wow. He was probably 17 at the time. And it's like, and I see it all the time. I'm working with somebody at the moment who's in her 20s, her mother died, and she's terrified of grief. She's terrified of feeling that pain. So she's running away from it, literally traveling, going as far away to run away from the feelings. But they're still there. And we've been working together to help her see that the chaos that's happening when she's believing her thinking, like, I can't go there. I can't even see a picture of Mum because, and slowly she's relaxing and seeing that, oh, it doesn't have to be like that. Or whether it's working with, as we were talking earlier, this young girl I'm working with who's got anorexia at the moment, and that sudden realization of, oh, that thinking, oh, it's not real. And it doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be so hard. Well, it becomes less hard when we actually realize what actually creates our experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So something you mentioned earlier about, because I'm sure actually, I don't know if I am sure about that at all. Anybody listening in, oh yeah, I'm sure that they're wondering about, I don't know that actually. But something that comes to mind to me to kind of go back to is this. So B is now recovered. What happened? Like, for anyone that is going through this, it's like, okay, so that's all great. But actually, what happened?
Mm. So we'd had a number of years in and out of or seeing all the therapists, etc., etc., etc. And her BMI, which was their marker, had come up to a level where they would say, okay, you're ready to, we don't need to see you anymore. And she then got on with life, went off to university, but it was always there. It was always there.
What was always there? What is
so it as in anorexia,
right? Which is what? Exactly?
Which was the thinking around food.
Mm.
The thinking around food. It was constantly there in her mind. What she was going to eat today, could she eat that? If I'd phoned to say, let's go out for something to eat, she would plan which restaurant we'd go to so she could look at the menu, so she could, and it was all subconscious. She didn't even know she was doing it, having conversations with her today, she said, I didn't even realize that.
Mm.
So as she said, she was fine. If people would say, no, I'm fine. But it was very much a case of me being on eggshells around her. I couldn't, I kind of avoided subjects of food, which is interesting. So I was caught up in my own thinking about B and her thinking about eating disorder. And then she was having a conversation with a friend and colleague of mine who's a drama therapist and works from this understanding. And we were having a conversation, and B was telling her about her blacklist, which was this subconscious list of foods that she just didn't eat. And boy, was that list long. And the conversation suddenly came to a grinding halt when this colleague and friend of mine said to her, you do know that's made up, B, don't you? You do know that blacklist doesn't really exist. And then there was this stunned silence from the three of us as that realization hit B right between the eyes. Oh my God. Oh my God. I've made it up. And B it was literally like a house of cards collapsing. Because her life had revolved around this blacklist that was real to her. And now she was seeing that it was an illusion. And everything changed. And over the space of, I don't know how long it was, not long at all, I'd get text messages from B saying, oh my God, smoked salmon and cream cheese sandwiches. Who knew?
Oh my God, they're yummy, aren't they?
Things like having two boys, I used to cook a lot of carbs. They were both, doing a lot of sport, and they just ate. They had hollow legs, so they just ate, and they're over 6 foot. And so glad I live alone now. I don't have my shopping list is a basket.
You had your blacklist of shopping.
Yeah. And I used to cook things like gnocchi. Okay, so it's Italian kind of potato thing, dumplingy things, and of course they were off B's list. And she texted me and she said, "I've just cooked gnocchi with a blue cheese creamy sauce. Oh my God." And I'm there sobbing with joy. Or her texting me the things she was going to cook for her and her boyfriend that night.
Yeah, like it's something so simple, like not even like we think about, right? So
yeah.
But what dawns on me when I listen to you is like there was this new lease of life. It was like a rebirth of living, a rebirth of wow. Like a whole new reality, whole new life had just opened up for her that she didn't even realize existed.
Exactly. And I'm getting a copy of, I just want to read something if that's okay.
Yeah.
Which is the last thing that so we've written a book about her recovery.
So it's recovering from the inside out, is that correct?
It's called Recovery from Within.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, Recovery from Within, a mother and daughter's journey through anorexia. And this is the last thing that she wrote. So for me, going forward, everything we've written about in the book means I can be whoever I want to be and not be defined by labels or others' expectations. I can do whatever I want, and no matter what happens, I'll be okay. I can eat whatever I want, whenever I want. I am more confident and trust my own instincts. I can empathize with others when they're caught up in their own thinking. I can go to a restaurant and not panic about what I can and can't eat. I'm able to notice more quickly when my thinking isn't being helpful. I can be curious about the foods that were off limits for so long. My mind is freed up to focus on other things. I can enjoy food again. I can enjoy life again. And that gets me every time I read it.
I think intrinsically as parents, that's what we want our kids to be, right? Is they just enjoy this experience they've been given.
Yeah. And that, exactly. As a mother, it's like, oh, yes.
I love that. This identity piece, because something that I'm currently working with someone at the moment, and one of the things, she asked it herself actually, which is, who would I be without this disorder? And so, because it does take up so much time and energy, and we kind of become the disorder. You are anorexic. I am anorexic. It's like, I am the disorder. What's been really helpful? Like, what has Bea seen that was really helpful for her?
It's interesting because one of the chapters that she's written in the book, so we've alternated, we write, different sections. And one of the chapters that is entitled, Who Am I Without My Eating Disorder? And what she has seen, what she's really seen is that she is only experiencing her thinking. That she is, oh God, we could go really existential here, but, who am I really?
Yeah, sure.
We don't exist,
sure.
really. It's just,
Conversation you have down the pub.
Absolutely. But she's seen the amount of energy that the eating disorder was taking up, that's all she saw. But now she can see that was just thinking that she was taking seriously, getting caught up in, and she was missing everything else around life and who she was. And as she said, now it's funny because I think something that she's written on that section in the book was about, so today I might wear my boyfriend's jumper and be a tomboy, or tomorrow I might wear, my power suit and go into work and be a businesswoman. But that, again, that's not who I am. I am it's the awareness from that space that who we really are. And when, so it's like saying, who I am, who I think I am, is only made up a bunch of thinking that I've got about who I am. Okay. A mother, and some days I don't feel like a great mother. Some days I feel like a superwoman. Some days I feel like, I'm a great daughter, and other days I think I'm not. So who am I? I'm all and none of that. So the same with what I was thinking about Bea, who had an eating disorder. She was not seeing the same thing. There's this picture, you've probably seen it. It's like and it's a drawing of a girl looking at herself in the mirror, and we're the observer of that girl looking at herself in the mirror. So she's looking, and the reflection to her is of fat. Okay. And what we're seeing is the back view of her, which is bones. Okay.
Yeah. So something,
No, I was going to say, so what's really going on there? It's only ever our perception.
I had this really crazy thought that popped in about 3 years ago, where it was like, I actually don't know what I look like.
Yes, I know.
Depending. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and go, fuck yeah, I'm so hot. Like, seriously, I'm the hottest woman on the planet. And other days I go, oh my God, look at that fat on my tummy. I've really got to do something about it.
But it's so funny, and this kind of going a left turn here, but it's like a lover sees you as this God's gift, and you're kind of sucking everything in and going, oh, no, look at my tits. They're like, I'm 55, Don't.
Oh, you do? Can I? That's really lucky you have one of those. I want one of those. Obviously, there is this thing called body dysmorphia where you see your perception of what you think about. So, but that idea of I don't actually know what I look like, and I will never know what I look like, and I don't know how other people see me. Because they will have days where they think I'm hot and sexy, and other days where they may think, gosh, she's so smelly.
Yeah.
Right?
And none of it's real.
No. Isn't that great? So a question that came to mind was, what's been really helpful for you as a mum to have seen? Because obviously for her to see that she wasn't the label, for her to see that she'd made things up, for her to see that it was just a lot of overthinking in this particular area. What's been really useful for you as a carer to see that's helped her, actually, not just helped you, but that's helped her? Because obviously it's the same thing.
Yeah. Two things come to mind. One of them is unconditional love.
You mean it's not conditional?
Well, you see, that's some really, really disturbed thinking I had until I came across. In fact, it was in a conversation with Michael Neal that I had thought that my parents had loved me conditionally for 54 years.
Wow.
And I literally, oh God, I made that up as well.
Because by the very nature of love, it's unconditional. Love is unconditional, full stop.
Yeah. So for her, and this was helpful for her as well, is that because at the time she didn't love herself, she hated herself. So to have a mother there that loved her, even if she were throwing, let's say, oranges at me, or slamming doors in my face, or I loved her unconditionally. And that was foundational for her and for me.
Now, does it have to be the mother or the father that love? It can be anyone. They can see that they are loved regardless of what they look like, what they think.
Yeah. And whatever they're choosing to do.
Because I know, so this kind of begs the question, because I know you've seen something else, but it might well lead into that. What happens if that particular, because obviously B is really lucky to have you as a mum, right? So very supportive. Sometimes, I'm sure there were times that she was like, you're not being supportive at all, blah. Yeah. But you were there, you were open, you were unconditional. But let's say, for example, like my mum, bless her, was there. She didn't really quite know what to do with it. Or maybe there are parents that just literally cannot deal. And so that person thinks that they can't even talk to the very people that they want to share this with, because there is so much ego, there is so much guilt, there is so much like, oh my God, worry. Yeah. So I'd love you to speak to that.
It's a really tough thing. And that's what, you hear an awful lot from people is that they don't feel supported and loved. And it can be really hard, really, really hard. But for me, I guess what I'm passionate about sharing is, and this is the second thing that I see, I feel this leads on to it, is seeing the health that is beneath the inverted commas disorder, because as you and I both said earlier, we don't like that. I don't like the vocabulary around it. So if there isn't somebody like a parent or a love or your partner or your best friend or whoever it is that sees that health in you, it's for me, my role as a coach now is to help my client, say who is somebody that's struggling, is to see their own health. And the reason that people don't see the health is because they're bombarded with their own thinking about, my daughter is sick, this is my worst nightmare. You've got your own, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help. I don't, oh my God. And it gets all completely spiraled. But I keep coming back to the health and resilience that is innate in all of us. And that's my job, is to point that out and to keep pointing there and to keep pointing there. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, and for someone that doesn't actually understand pointing back to their health, because obviously I do. I've been around how life works for about 5 years. So I understand it. But for someone that's maybe listening in for the first time, what does that actually mean?
I guess I see it, and this is kind of a meta, and best way is to use a metaphor, I think. And I'll share my metaphor that I love, and I'll share a metaphor that B uses. So I'm sitting here in South Wales at the moment. There's blue sky. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, the weather isn't always as lovely as this in South Wales. And we cannot see that blue sky for days, and it can be raining and windy and foggy and misty. And yet I never, ever, ever doubt that that the blue is always there. I never doubt that the blue sky is always there behind.
Yeah, you just need to go in an aeroplane, right?
Yeah, quite. Exactly. So if we then liken that to us, ourselves, our thinking and our moods and everything, is that our natural state of being is the blue sky. But we think we're the weather. So we think that we are the thunderstorm, that what's going on for us is who I am. Okay, so we can have, so what I'm sharing with people is that we can have all the rainy day thinking, or the high wind thinking, or we're caught in a tornado of some sort, or a snowstorm, or it's so foggy I can't see beyond the end of the garden. And metaphorically, we've all got that going on at some time. We're human. It's not all a bed of roses, and that would be boring, frankly. But it's not who we are. Fundamentally, it's not who we are. So that we can allow this thinking, which might be anorexic thinking or relationship issue thinking or money thinking, to just be, oh, I've got that thinking, rather than, oh, it's who I am. I can never have a relationship. I'm always useless with money. I'm always going to be an alcoholic, whatever it is. Okay, it's thinking that we're giving airtime to, and thinking it's who we are, but it's not, because we are that default, which is blue sky. It's that feeling we get deep down, and some of us might not have experienced it for a long time, but deep down, where we just go, yeah, I know. Home base kind of thing.
So 2 things that came to mind when you were speaking was, the first one was it always like that for her and for you? So I'm just curious, is like, because often we can go, oh, yeah, it's a blanket license that during that time it was all awful. But did she have moments of peace?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
it wasn't a constant state of like anxiety, but often we think it is, because I have this eating disorder and therefore it's like that all the time.
No, absolutely. And I have suffered with, well, probably on and off 10 years of depression in the past. Okay. But I'd given myself the label I was depressed. Okay. Now, when I was lying in bed curled up with one of my babies in a state of bliss, I wasn't depressed. When I was walking by the beach and hearing the waves crash on the shore and feeling the sun on my face, I wasn't depressed. When B and I were out walking the dog in the park and it was pouring with rain and we were laughing because we were so wet, she didn't have an eating disorder. But we think it's who we are. And B's metaphor for this is around when you buy a new laptop and it's factory setting and it runs like a dream. And then we start loading it up with apps and documents and streaming stuff and it begins to go wrong and, And that's kind of her metaphor for it, is that we just need to take it back to factory settings.
I love that. And so the other thing I was going to ask you was, as a mama, when she was all caught up, did you see the health in her? Was that useful?
I think I would have worded it differently then, because I didn't have the language that I've got now around this. But I remember a conversation I had with her that was, I can't make you better, because that's up to you. That's not, it's not a plaster that I'm going to stick on to make this all better. And I had to hand it back to her in some way. Now, whether I saw that as seeing her health underneath all that and trusting her, there's part of me that wants to say yes, there was a level on that, because if I hadn't, then I would have wanted to cling on to it to make her better. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what's coming to me.
Yeah. Like, what comes to mind is, I think it was Bill Pettit's wife. So Bill Pettit is a psychiatrist. For those of you who don't know who he is, if you'd like to look up, you can always Google Bill Pettit. But he had a wife, who shared an experience she had with a client. She was dying of cancer. The client was. And she was saying how she was really chilled out about it. And then one day she just got really in her head about the fact that she started to get really worried about her client. And the client just turned around to her and goes, "This is really unhelpful." Wow, right? Like, this is so unhelpful to me to see you so worried, because now I think that I don't have what it takes to be okay with this.
Yes.
So what kind of spoke to me around that was like, it's almost like, oh, wow. So I see the resilience.
Yeah.
And on an energetic level, it's like they see the resilience in me. That must mean I'm resilient.
Yep.
Is it something along those lines?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing that was important as well for me was for me to get on with life. I had 2 boys to look after as well. I mean, one was getting ready to leave home, and I had a marriage that was falling apart at the same time. So
yes,
you know, yay!
Well done, you, Rebecca. Well played.
But I also had friends I wanted to see. I wanted to look after myself. I had a friend who was a reflexologist, and she was saying, "Come and let me treat you, let me help you, let me look after you for a bit." So that was important. And that was important even subconsciously for B to see, that it was like, I trust you enough that I can look after myself and not have to just be intensely focused on you. And that's what parenting is about, isn't it? It's giving them, as I talk about a lot, or did talk about a lot, roots and wings, giving them the roots to know that place of resilience and well-being and home. And it's not bricks and mortar, because I've lived in so many different homes. It's not that. But also the wings to fly. Bee's had it tattooed on her chest, on her side, on her ribs. She said, "Mum, you can't be cross because they're your words."
Clever kid.
I know. But that's it, isn't it? It's roots and wings.
Yeah, home is where you are, as opposed to where the house is.
Yeah. And home is where they are.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Also, something that I wanted to ask was there, like, often we can take like something like this so seriously, right? It's serious business. Like, this is a life-threatening disorder that could, and it's not a way to kind of belittle it, but there is a way in which humor can also play a big role in making light of it. So not taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
And I know this may sound, for anybody that's listening in, going, what? Of course it's serious. Was there any of that going on? Was there a sense of, we can also be lighthearted about it? Like, it doesn't have to be this heavy thing.
I think back then it did feel very heavy, because obviously I hadn't come across, what we know about how the mind really works. So it felt weighty, which is interesting as we're talking about, anorexia.
There's a lot of heavy thinking that comes with it, right? Ironically.
Yeah, exactly. So it is really important. But and yes, of course, we had moments. But as I'm talking, I'm thinking, I'm not sure I remember many light moments. So it was heavy for everybody. And interestingly, Bees associated that with the house that we lived in at the time, which is really interesting. Whereas when I'm working with my clients now, we laugh all the time.
I love that, because I love that. Because I think in society we kind of, you've got cancer, or like, you've got eating disorder, they've got a eating disorder.
Yeah.
About it. Or, oh my God, like, having an op, down there. Oh, like, can't talk about it. And I see this with the mums I work with, where there's so much shame around being a shit mum. Right, like this whole thing around, I can't talk about the fact that I'm fucking failing and failing really, really dismally, which is all made up anyway. But in their mind, it feels so real. But there's so much shame around it. Like, there's so much shame around. And what I've realized, like, it just sort of came to me in, like last week, is if we don't talk about it, if we don't make light of it, if we can't, like, if we whisper about it, the shame just, it solidifies the shame in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. Let's give it some space. Let the conversation have some space, like a good wine. Open the bottle and let it breathe.
Yeah, very much.
Because then shame can, this sort of hiding it, suppressing it. Yeah. What have you found? Like,
so much. Oh my gosh, the thinking that I had around my ability as a parent when B was ill, I was so ashamed because of what other people might think about me.
Right. Like, she's been a shit mom because it's all her fault.
My fault. What have I done? Was it, she was a middle child. Was I a pushy parent? Was I, I don't know. I always said she was so beautiful. Maybe that was the problem. Was it that, gosh, if she hadn't been born in the middle and she'd been the eldest, would she not feel in competition with her brother? Was it that my relationship with her dad was so bad? Was it, I don't know. Was it that I'd been selfish enough to have a third child? And was it that I stayed at home? Was it that I, oh God, so much thinking. And of course I spoke to nobody about all that because of the shame. Oh God. Yeah.
For anybody that's listening in, we're just breathing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And we just don't talk about it.
It's still a really taboo subject.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I've got, girlfriends that I've known for many years and some that I've met more recently. And I'm finding more as I get older, and because of what I've seen about how life works, God, I talk about everything with my girlfriends now.
Yeah.
Everything.
I do too.
And all the stuff that goes around, I'm kind of perimenopausal, menopausal, not quite sure what's going on.
Whatever that means.
All of that, whatever that means exactly, talking about, just everything. And gosh, it's so much lighter. And we laugh so much.
I think, I remember watching this movie, and it was so fascinating. I love Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is my idol. And I have this desire to invite him on this podcast, and for him to say yes, and for us to have a conversation. So I've put it out there now. I've made it a thing. It's out there.
Oh my God, he is just awesome. I love what he talks about.
And I love his transformation. So, and it all came about because when he decided he was going to be that famous comedian. Oh, what's his name? Oh, can't remember now. Anyway, it's a movie about him becoming that person. Mm-hmm. And so he decided that he was going to be that person for 24/7. And so Jim Carrey's identity completely disappeared. And he took on the persona of this. Actually, no, it didn't come. He channeled this guy.
Okay.
Oh, I'm going to have to look it up.
Have to Google it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So interesting.
So, so basically, what was really interesting about it was that he became this person. Let me just... And so the family of this said person were amazed because it literally was like having him in the room.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The way he moved, the way he said things, the way he... just he became this person. Oh my gosh, it's not even on his filmography.
Oh, how interesting.
Anyway, Andy Kaufman. So
you got there.
Andy Kaufman, fine. All right then. And being Andy Kaufman, I think it's called. Anyway, so he then said, and it was decided that he would then become Jim Carrey again. He said it was really amazing because literally Jim Carrey came back and all of Jim Carrey's thinking came back. So all of Jim Carrey's problems, all of Jim Carrey's thinking, all of Jim Carrey's issues. And I just found that absolutely fascinating because I was like, oh, wow. So Jim Carrey completely disappeared. He morphed into a completely different person with all of their hang-ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The transient nature of who we are.
Oh, gosh.
But he said something in that movie which basically really... And he said, I'm here to make light of things so people's worries disappear. And I just love that because actually there's nothing like lightness of heart.
And, one of the things that I what I talk about in the work that I do is my desire to show people that they just don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
They don't have to suffer. In whatever area that is. When we see that actually it's all an illusion. Thinking, just because we've had a thought doesn't make it real.
Or that we need to believe it. It kind of, what occurs to me is you're not going to get any points when you die for having suffered more than somebody else. You won't be going to heaven maybe either. I don't know. Yeah, that's really...
But the suffering is optional. We will experience pain. We will experience heartbreak and grief. But the suffering is optional. And I don't know if somebody said that. But the suffering is the thinking that we have around the grief or the heartbreak or the whatever it is. That's created by the self or the who we think we are kind of thing.
I love that. So, Rebecca, does anything else want to be shared before we wrap up?
I guess the only thing that comes to mind, and this is echoing some words that Bea has said as well, and I absolutely agree with this and feel it myself, is that I don't wish it had been different. I'm happy that we experienced it, even through all the pain. I wouldn't have had it any other way because of what we've seen now.
I love that, because I've come to see that our greatest insecurity will also bring the most profound insights. Like, I remember going through my divorce with my ex-husband, and this one day where this rush of grief, and then with that came another wave of insight, and then another rush of grief, and then another wave of insight. And it literally was an entire day of waves, of like a rush and a wave and a rush and a wave. And it felt like I was going through this washing machine of cleansing somehow, of all this shit that was bubbling up to the surface, of thinking that I had, and stuff I didn't even realize I was even thinking anymore. And like, there were nights that I wanted to just leave this body again. And just, I was like, wow, that's curious. Like, my suicidal thoughts came back in. I'm like, whoa, I hadn't had these in a while. But it was a very different experience of all of that thinking, and that I didn't go and top myself that time. It literally waves of it, waves and waves. So it can be actually it can open up Pandora's box, but be incredibly revealing and healing at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rebecca, wow, what a beautiful conversation. I don't know if I often say this, but if I do, well, it doesn't matter really. This has actually been one of my favorite conversations so far.
Oh, I've loved it. I've loved it. And do you know what? What's so funny is that 24 hours ago,
I know,
we didn't really know. Well,
I didn't even know you existed.
No.
And now I know all your dirty and dirty secrets, and I'm going to be sharing it with everybody.
Amazing.
So if someone's listening in and they're like, oh my God, I'm the mum, or oh my God, that's me as the daughter, or if this resonates for you, how can they connect with you, and where can they get a copy of your book?
Oh, so the best and easiest place to go to is our website, which is recoveryfromwithin.life. Don't you like that? That our dot is .life.
Nice.
So recoveryfromwithin.life.
Yeah, .com is so mundane these days.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's so 2014.
Yes. We're on Instagram as well, so you can find us there on Recovery From Within.
Great.
And our book is available on Amazon, but there's links on our website. There's links. It's probably easiest to go to the website, because then there's a link to where you can get the book. There's also links to broadcasts that we've done already. And yeah, so you can sign up to our mailing list from the website. Bea and I love sharing and talking about this. And, I'm a coach. I work with parents or people, friends of those that are struggling, or those that are struggling themselves. I live by the beach. Come and spend a few days intensively, and we'll just walk and talk and whatever. But conversation, transformational conversations.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I'm
high
five through the camera.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Pleasure.
So yeah, wow, another amazing episode. And thank you so much if you've tuned in. And until the next time, bye for now. And there you have it, another wonderful episode of The Joy of Being. If you loved what you heard here today and it's been helpful, why not subscribe or share the podcast with others? And if you're curious as to how you can experience more joy in your life and feel carefree, then I invite you to download your Joy Catalyst scorecard at www.marinapearson.com/scorecard, which will help you identify the joy gaps and what you can do to fill them. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. So until next week's episode, remember, you are the joy you seek.